Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. In today's video, as you can tell by the title and what we have pulled up here, I'm going to be talking about and making my point about why I believe massive winter storms are likely coming this winter. And I don't mean just, regular winter storms that occur during every single winter. More specifically, storms that occur every few winters, and ones that there could be also several of them, and ones that are usually remembered for at least a few years afterwards, or potentially even for a lot longer time afterwards. Examples of this are like the 2016 blizzard in across the Mid-Atlantic, maybe the 2011 Groundhog Day blizzard across the Midwest, storms of those nature. And I'll be explaining to you why I believe this winter will have several of those storms. In order to understand where I'm coming from about my belief with these snowstorms, I gotta take you guys to a place where I initially found a lot of evidence for this claim in the first place. So we have this thing, I always talk about this thing called Enzo, or an El Nino, or a La Nina. Those are phases of the Enzo. And basically what that is a area of water, and right now we do have an El Nino advisory, area of water off the South American continent, just west of it. And you can see that right now we have warm anomalies, which would make this an El Nino, right? And you can see that this slideshow that I have pulled up right now is a graphic that the National Weather Service, in cooperation with the Climate Prediction Center, release, and this gives us updates about the weekly sea surface temperature departures, and where areas are cooling or warming. And basically, what you have to know is that right now we have an El Nino, and this is very important to why potentially snowstorms are going to be occurring across the U.S. later this year. It may not sound like it, but it is. And notice this is what they are predicting, right? El Nino is favored to the northern hemisphere winter. So now that we have established that an El Nino is almost certainly going to occur, we have to also establish the strength of this El Nino. And the reason is El Ninos vary significantly in their impacts based on how strong they are. A strong El Nino has different impacts from a moderate one and a weak one, right? So you could see where this quickly starts becoming a little chaotic, because not only do we have to predict an El Nino, which by itself is already a bit hard, a lot easier than it used to be with the new technologies that we have. However, the strength still remains something that is very hard to predict because, well, it's a lot more detailed, and it's not as simple as saying this or that will occur. It's how much of this or that will occur. Notice that, again, this is a model that shows the strength of an El Nino. So again, the strength is very important, and you can see all these individual ones are kind of the predictions. So notice that a lot of them for this show a El Nino potentially stronger than 1 degree. A weak El Nino is anywhere from 0.5 to 1. A moderate is from 1 to 1.5. A strong is 1.5 and above. Few do show above 2, but you can see that the DYN average, the statistical average, the CPC console do show predominantly it's staying moderate to strong. So definitely on a stronger side of things, not a weaker one. I like this set of models better. I've been tracking the El Nino and its patterns, and the La Nina and the neutral with this slideshow that they update every Thursday of each month, or every second Thursday. For the last 7 or 8 years, so I'm very familiar to this, and historically this has been a little bit more accurate than the ones above. And you can see that this shows the projections. Obviously a few outliers show even closer to 2, but notice how it's a lot less than this one. This one has a few that show over 2. This one just has a few that come close to 2. And actually what's interesting, it shows that the El Nino strength already peaked, right? And this is new. This is 18th of September, so this is new data. And this one shows that it's already peaked, and it will continue weakening or flattening as we go into the winter. So we are currently, according to it, at a 1.6, which is definitely a moderate El Nino. And it will show that the moderate will continue for some time, potentially transitioning into a weak one by the end of the winter. So what I'm going to say is that a moderate to strong El Nino is likely. Now, why does this matter? Why do we care? Well, I'm not going to show you the impacts of what a moderate to strong El Nino has across the United States, because that's not what this video is about. Here, I wanted to tell you, what the probabilities are, or why I believe there will be large snowstorms. And I didn't come to the conclusion looking at the impacts of a strong or moderate El Nino. What I did was clicked here because I wanted to look at all the previous El Ninos, the moderate ones and the strong ones, and what years they occurred. Alright, so I ignored 2018, 2019. You could see it really didn't have a strong El Nino or moderate one. It was 0.9 degrees, so barely there. I used 2015, 2016 because that was a moderate to strong one. 2009, 2010, this one's especially important. This one's especially important because of the fact that many weather agencies have chosen that year as their analog year, meaning out of all the years prior, they choose 2009, 2010 being the most similar to this upcoming winter. So that's very interesting that they chose that, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Because the amount of snowstorms that year had that were massive is a little bit uncomfortable. And I chose also a few other years that had weak to moderate El Nino, or I'm sorry, moderate to strong El Ninos. I could have gone way, way, way back, but honestly, I think only just a few years will be enough to prove my point. So let's go to this slideshow that I prepared for you guys. So I went to this thing called the Regional Snow Index. They have this all kind of database going back to winter storms all the way back to the beginning of the 1900s. So over 120 years, and you can go back and click on individual dates of where storms occurred, and they rank these storms based on how strong or how not strong they were. So each one is given a category as well, or at least each region. And also what's important to note is that they don't have region ratings for the Northwest, Southwest, and South kind of Central here, Rockies. They only show snowstorms that affect the Northern Rockies here, or sorry, the Northern Rockies / Plains, the South Central United States, the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Upper Midwest, and the Northeast. And so that's also pretty interesting that I thought. And a Category 4 is not based on a Category 4 snowstorm as in the same sense as a hurricane. It's more of the impacts that system brought with it. So a Category 4 system is one that's massive, almost historic. A Category 5 is something that occurs maybe once or twice every century. So truly something incredible. So even a Category 4 is already extremely impressive. So the first year that I said I chose was 2016, and notice during January, the late half of January in 2016, we had a massive snowstorm. Again, you can see that Category 4 that indicates something historic. Look at all those red dots indicating 2 feet snow plus. I'm sure many of you guys that live across the Northeast / Mid-Atlantic, New York City, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, all remember this snowstorm. And that occurred during a year that had a El Nino pattern. It was strong. I don't think we will get as strong this year, right? But it's still something that, in case we do get stronger El Nino, the possibility for a massive snowstorm is still there. That may be counterintuitive to what you guys hear constantly in the news, that, El Nino warming, which, to be fair, it does usually mean warmer conditions, but in certain aspects, it also could mean large winter storms, and that's usually to do with the fact that how the El Nino sets up because of the winds, the jet stream that stays very low to the south, so it has a lot of moisture here, cold air also that pulls down towards the south, and basically we have an eruption of these storms of snow and ice across pretty far south across the U.S. So that was 2016. But let me go to the year that I really think is similar to this upcoming year, and that is 2009, 2010. So it started off early. You could see this snowstorm, while it didn't have a 4 or a 5, it did have a Category 3 for the upper Midwest, and you can see it was just massive in scope. Notice that it was just incredible. The Northeast obviously picked up a bit of snow here. Some amounts, especially near the lakes, were over 2 feet. And I gotta note that these little blue dots, that's not like 3 to 6 inches. That's 12 to 18. The darker blue is 18 to 24, right? I mean, this is a database for historic snowstorm. This isn't something just for your regular 6 to 10, 8-inch events across the upper Midwest. So, and you could see how wide this swath of snow was. I mean, all of Iowa was covered in snow, right? So that's why I believe, if we were gonna take a look at 2009, 2010 and compare it to this upcoming winter, we got to take into account the fact that, well, this winter had an obscene amount of large winter storms. Another one, December 18th through 21st. Look again, the Mid-Atlantic being targeted. And again, for the Southeast there, that Southeastern Mid-Atlantic region, this was a Category 4, meaning a historic system. Now, obviously, you could see that those amounts further south and east, there were some here that reached 24 inches in portions of mountainous North Carolina. Incredible. It's very similar to the first one I showed you in 2016. Now let's go and keep going, because this is not it. We're still in the month of December for the 2009-2010 season, and almost simultaneously we have a system occurring towards the north for the northern plains. This is a 5, so this means this is a system that occurs maybe once or twice every 50 years. and you could see that, yeah, I mean, the scope of this thing, right? Because we do get amounts in the 24-inch plus across the Dakotas every year, almost, it seems, at least in some point or another. But the scope of this thing, I mean, those amounts, those light blue dots and those dark blue dots is 1.5 feet. I mean, it's almost all of the upper Midwest, not to mention the gray ones, which is 2 to 6 inches. So that also just covered an absolute obscene amount of snow. Of area, sorry. So again, this is something we'll have to keep an eye on for, because if this happens again, I mean, look, this is a year that has very, very similar characteristics to this upcoming winter, and it's producing snowstorm after snowstorm, which leads me to believe, well, we could see it this year. Look at this one. This one occurred now in February. January had a little bit of a break, no massive beasts, right? But then right back into February, the Mid-Atlantic getting targeted again with a 4, which is also something that occurs rarely. 24 inches plus across much of the Mid-Atlantic. You could see southeastern, southern Pennsylvania at 18 to 24 inches into Indianapolis, Illinois. Various amounts of, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches. And, of course, a few spots that did get less than 2 inches. But, again, the scope of this thing is pretty extraordinary. Now, let's take a look at literally simultaneous, just a little bit later. Because, look, this is February 4th through 8th. Now, 8th through 11th, we have yet another system bringing more snow for the Mid-Atlantic there. Now, this one isn't necessarily as strong. It's just a 2 at its maximum. That's still a significant system, and especially what makes it more incredible is it came right on the heels of this one. Then, we're not done. Right on the heels of this one, on February 8th through 11th, we had another monstrous winter storm. Now, this may not look jarring in terms of the colors, right? There aren't no reds or dark blue spots, but look how far south that is. I mean, that's literally almost into the Florida Panhandle. And we have amounts there, 2 to 6, and even some 6 to 12, and even some 12 to 18 amounts near Dallas, right? So this is very far south, and it's a snowstorm that obviously caused a lot of damage and whatnot. And you can see for the south, this is a 4, something that rarely occurs. So that was very interesting. Now, on the heels of this one, there was another one, 10th through the 13th. Again, another system for the south and east. You could see this was a 4 on the southern kind of scale of extreme. And you can see Dallas, again, being targeted with 6 to 12, 12 to 18 inches of snow. And we have snowfall amounts there around almost 2 inches in portions of the panhandle of Florida. So again, this isn't just across one area, right? I mean, we had northern plains snowstorms, massive ones across the Mid-Atlantic, huge ones across the south. And this season keeps going. You could see that in the 21st through the March 1st, we had yet another snowstorm. Now, this one was further inland northeast, but you can see it was a 4. And a system has to be pretty large for it to be a 4 on the northeast. They're used to large systems. And you can see that a ton of these areas got 2 feet plus of snow. And I mean a ton. So very, very interesting. We'll just have to see whether or not this year pans out the same. But if we're going to use that as an analog year, 2009, 2010, leads me to believe, right, that we could see a lot of snowstorms. So 2003 was another year that I wanted to look at, and this one obviously wasn't as stormy, but look, by February 14th through the 18th, we found yet another system that left a 4, 3, and a 3. So this is obviously a very, legendary system, dropping tons of snow in Iowa, across the Midwest here, and then in the Northeast, just 18 to 24 inches. Notice that the Mid-Atlantic often gets targeted with these systems during these years. So if you live especially across the East Coast here, I would be paying attention. Another year was a 2006, 2007 that I chose. This one was a little bit of a different storm, but I'm showing you it because look at the amount of snow it left for Colorado. I mean, dumped snow across Colorado. Now, you may be wondering why these numbers aren't higher. Why isn't there a higher category? Well, if you notice, the South Central Rockies isn't a category on here. If it were, this would probably be a 4 or a 5. Obviously, they get a lot of snow in the mountains, but this is just east of the mountains. This is in cities like Denver. Cities are almost not nearly as elevated. And again, a lot of little red dots. What's also interesting is that on the heels of this one, it seems that often during these years we have patterns where we just have storm after storm after storm and then nothing. Because look, this one occurs 2006. And literally days after, in that same year, 2006, 2007, we have another one. This one's also a monster. And notice that it's not nearly as highly rated in terms of the scale because, again, a lot of the heaviest amounts fell into the South Central Rockies, which isn't a region here. And do note that, this may not seem as impressive, but that's 6 to 12, almost 18 inches of snow a huge swath of Dakotas, and you can see Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, and New Mexico getting slammed by that. So these are all like the different storms I wanted to show you. I could keep going on and on during these El Nino years showing you these winter storms, but I think you get the point, that this is just an incredible potential feature that I noticed, and I wanted to share it with you, which is why I believe there will be massive storms this El Nino, especially if our winter is anything similar to this 2009-2010 monster, which looks like there may be quite a bit of. Alright guys, that is basically it for today's video. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.